Well, I realised that I've given you a brief tour of the running track, but not a general view of the garden itself. So here we are in the attic, where I'm going to try avoid banging my head, and we're going to film through this oval window called œil de bœuf in French, bullseye, and get a general view of the garden like that. You can see the running track on the left. You can't see a lot on the right because of the trees, but it goes up the left, it turns right. There is the railway, which you can't actually see, and beyond the railway the Montégué, the hill to the south of Aix, which looks a bit like a jungle but is in fact has houses dotted around and the hospitals just up the road, which is quite useful. And then the track comes down on the right. You can just spot the swimming pool and the tool shed there, and then ends back up at the barbecue. And here we have the terrace and the trait, which is Virginia creeper, and there's a little bit of vine in there as well. So there you go, that's the general view of the garden. And here we can see it a little bit later in the day, the afternoon, from the other side, the other end of the garden, the top end. And if I zoom in here, we can just make out the window at the top of the house where I was filming from this morning. And there's the running track. And this is from the other corner of the garden, with the a cherry tree in the foreground. That hump in the middle is the swimming pool, and you can see the house at the far end there, and the track comes down here and ends up back at the barbecue. So there you have a general view of the garden, which is basically just two halves. Between the two halves there's a path in the middle which takes us up to the pool, and there you can see the running track again. Many of the features of the garden were already here when we arrived, like the swimming pool and the path up the middle, but we've obviously done a lot since we've been here. Well, when I say we, I actually mean mostly my wife, because you'll discover as we go along that I'm not a great gardener. But I do know the garden very well, and it occurred to me that you're probably not here just to watch an old bloke running, so I thought I'd show you the garden instead. It might be a little bit more interesting. Well, that was back in February. We're now mid-November, and that was when I was still brimful of hope and optimism and belief, which I still am, except for a different project than the one I started out with, because there were a few setbacks along the way. 3 in fact. A small one, very temporary, a medium one which might or might not have been fatal to the running project, but I never really had time to find out, because then a big one came along which was fatal and forced me to change the project. But we're going to start off with the little setback, which was back in February. Very temporary, very slight. So that'll be the next video. A bientôt.